previous video that was uploaded in the phase one, you should be able to follow up as to what we've been doing basically. And the last video talked about um, installing or setting up the development environment setup basically. And for this week, we'll be going straight into writing our first hello world in C sharp. And hello world is like a convention in the software development industry whereby when you just start to learn a programming language, one of the first few things you will do is printing out hello world in your terminal. So without further ado, let's jump straight to that. And when you open your Visual Studio Code, no, sorry, Visual Studio 2026, this is what you should see at first. Then all you have to do is navigate to this section here, create a new project, click on this. Then you get this loading screen. And now for the type of projects we'll be doing, this is it here, the console apps. However, say we want to start building backend services, APIs, and whatnot. These are the list of different templates that we'll be using. So say you want to build an API with .NET or with C Sharp, this is what you'll be clicking. However, since what we'll be doing for the next like couple of weeks is console apps, we're just trying to like grasp the concept of C sharp programming language. So what we'll just be needing is this console app. So when you click this bottom right, click next, then the name of the project. So let's just say intro C sharp. Then the location, you can choose where this is going to be located on your machine. So when you click this, it's going to take you to your, you know, your file explorer. Yeah, I'm okay with this. Then click next. Then you'll be brought to this page whereby you need to choose your .NET version. As you can see, because I've been using .NET for quite some time, I think since 2022, so I've had several .NET versions. So there's .NET 8, .NET 9, .NET 10. However, since .NET 10 is the latest long-term support, you just click this and click create bottom right here. So when you create the project, this is basically, like I said, right off the bat, even Visual Studio knows what you should be writing. Your first line of code is printing out hello world. But before we talk about the coding aspects, let me just take you through what the interface of the IDE of what Visual Studio IDE looks like. So on this right panel here, you have your Solution Explorer. So this Solution Explorer is just basically how it's just a table where you get to see all your files, where your code related files are going to live. So you can either drop it here. When you drop it here, you can either open it when you want to, if you accidentally close it, you can just go to this top navigation and click view, then click Solution Explorer. As you can see, there's a shortcut here. Press Ctrl Alt L. So let's just click that, and if I exit this and press Ctrl Alt L, that's like a keyboard shortcut basically. And you can see the files. Then these are just different ways for you to, if you are trying to like open a folder, this is what you can do. Edit this view. Like I said initially, this view is to do some stuff, like for example opening the Solution Explorer and some other things. Then projects, I don't know what this project is for, but if you open it, oh yeah, stuffs like we'll get more into it, but say you want to like, there are external packages. Let's say you're trying to like work on make uh let's say you're trying to use an external package. This is where you can like download the package and import the package into your projects. Very generally, this when you click manage NuGet packages, it will take you to a screen where you can browse um from a list of available packages on .NET ecosystem. Then there are stuffs like build if you're trying to like build your project. Then debug if you're trying to what debug means is let me just Google so you see. Um debug meaning just a way of identifying bugs or errors in your code. Debug refers to the process of identifying, analyzing, and removing errors, bugs, or faults from computer software or hardware to ensure proper functionality. Yeah, then yeah, a lot of stuff. I think this search is to like search through your code base. You're trying to like look for a file. You know, when we go into the like advanced stage, we have a lot of files in this tab over here, and there are sometimes that we might be overwhelmed with the code base. So one of the easiest way to just go through it is by just searching some key terms that we use. And yeah, that's pretty much about. Of course, there are a lot of things in that you can see in the interface, but don't be intimidated by that. You barely use most of them. They're just a couple of buttons you just need to press or icons you just need to like use. Moving on. So now let's jump straight into programming in C sharp. The project. The first things we the first things we saw was this line of code, console or right line, hello world. So what this does, console or right line does is it prints out string values or text into the terminal when you run the code. So to run the code, if you're on Visual Studio, this is how you do that. And for people that are using Visual Studio Code, I'll be recording. I'll add a timestamp to the YouTube video where you can just navigate to the Visual Studio Code section. So the look and feel, the development experience is quite different from developing with Visual Studio compared to Visual Studio Code. But for Visual Studio users, if you want to run the program, all you just have to do is come here and either this one or this one. However, there's a slight nuance difference. As you can see from this pop-up here, start without debugging. So what this just means is that I'll teach you in subsequent video, I'll teach you what this debugging means, like the acts of debugging. Is it? But for now, you not really know the difference between start with debugging or just start without debugging and start with debug, basically. So when you run this code, you see the project is building, and when you run it, you get this pop-up from your terminal. You can see this message printed there, hello world. So now to make it much more fun, you can change the message. Let's say hello world, hello, hello, your name. So in this instance, let me just use hello Ola Wale. And when you run it again, you should get hello Olawale. Yeah. So is that I mean that's like the fundamentals of writing C sharp. As you can see, it's so easy, you know. But anyways, it's programming is much more complicated than this, or it's much more verbose than this. So beyond this first line, we can also write, something else. So all you just have to do is follow the same convention or the same syntax as the one above. Console, in order for us to write a message to the terminal, you have to invoke this class console, then it has a couple of methods attached to it. And in subsequent videos, we'll go more in depth as to what methods are or what they mean. Well, right off the bat, you can see that these auto suggestions. What these auto suggestions just means is they are called in IDs, they are called intelligence. Is a smart way for us to like write code much more faster. So instead of having to like type manually the complete right line, instead of having to type that, what that intelligence does is when you press dots, that's you're trying to invoke the methods that are written in this console class. You can just see right off the bat that what you want to use. So there are different methods. There's a write line, there's read line, and clear. I mean, a lot of them, but however, what you are just trying to utilize is the write line. So when you type a little bit, you can press tab to complete the word for you. Then open your parentheses, and into the parentheses you add quotes. So after adding the quotes, you can type in anything you want. I live in the world. Then to end a statement or a line in C sharp, you have to end it with a semicolon. If you don't, as you can see, the ID is smart enough to tell you that okay, there's something missing. So you can see from here, semicolon expected. So let's just say show. You can also click on that show potential fixes, but I don't think that one doesn't work. But basically, when you hover your mouse on the red squiggly lines, it tells you okay, what is certainly wrong about your code. So you just need to add the semicolon. Then you make sure you save. I don't know if I have the auto save on, but press Control S to save. Then you can also come to this line. And there's also a shortcut for you to like type console right line. Once you just press CW, then press tab, you can see I got that auto completion. So rather than having to type uh, console dot right line, you can also do it this way. You can just press, yeah, you can just type CW, then press tab once. I think on VS Code, you have to press the tab twice to get that auto completion. But anyways, moving on, you can also come below. I am 40 years old. Then you can also come below. I am a software developer. So let me just I am a. Then lastly, I can say um I am currently, I don't know how to spell it again. I am currently learning C sharp. Click on this button here, or you can also press this shortcut Control plus F5. So you just need to do this Control then F5. When you press that, the program.cs file is running. As you can see, you get all of this printed out. Hello, Lali. I live in the world. I am 40 years old. I am a software developer. I am currently learning C sharp. So, beyond the console or write line, there's also a method in the console class called write. And the major difference between the write and the write line, which I'll show you, is this. What is your name? So I'm just going to add console dot read line. So what this read line does is it prevents your terminal from closing, or you just add a line below this prompt here when you run your code. Let's just run it again. Control F5. Exactly. So now the major difference between console write and console write and is that when you use console write, your cursor is immediately placed close or right after the prompt that you give. So in this instance, what is your name? As you can see, you already got this you already got this typing icon below there. So you can just quit your application by clicking X. And next up, we'll be talking about data types. And in C Sharp, there are various data types. As you can see on my screen here, there is the number type. Under the number type, there is int, long, float, and double. There is the Boolean type, which holds true or false. There is the character type, which just holds a single character, and a string, which holds a long sequence of characters or words. Now, to demonstrate these data types in C Sharp, there is a concept called variables. Variables are just a way for us to store data in memory. And for us to be able to store data in memory, we need to attach it to a particular data type. What do I mean by that is, let's say, for example, we're trying to store our age in memory. All we just have to do is int my age. My age is equals to 30. Then, like I said, for you to end the line of a statement or to end the sequence, to end the line in C sharp, for you to do that, you have to end it with semicolon. Then that's for age. If we are trying to declare a variable that holds our name in memory, all we just have to do is type here string my name is equals to .NET cursor. Then if we are trying to hold a character, let's say the initial of our name, so all we just have to do is char my initials equals to, I mean, like I said, the ID already suggested what we can do. However, for us to declare a character, there has to be a single quote. Please take note of that. Single quote and type in what you want to type. It can either be lowercase or uppercase. Then, for us to declare a Boolean type, which holds true or false values, just zeros and ones, or just how to declare that is bool is eligible to drink. True. Or let's just say false, basically. And what other type? Then there's the long type. Long my account balance. Because then there's a convention where we in C sharp where if you're trying to like declare for it to distinguish between an int value or a long value, you can either append the letter L behind it. So that way it tells the compiler that okay, this particular variable, yeah, my account balance is going to be a long value. It holds a long value. However, this concept are still going to be doing it, but let me just Google I think yeah, okay, I have it here already. So if you can see, data type specifies the size and type of variable values. It is important to use the correct data type for the corresponding variable to avoid errors, to save time and memory, but it will also make your code more maintainable and readable. The most common data types, which I've listed in the video, is int, long, float, double, bool, char, and string. And you can see the sizes of which they hold in memory. However, here's the important bit. Stores for int, it stores whole number from negative 2,147 2,147,483,648 to wherever this long number is. Then long, which is 8 bytes, it stores this value, the negative of it, to this. Float stores 6 to 7 decimal digits. Double stores fractional numbers. Then bool, 1 byte, stores true or false values. Character, char, 2 byte, stores single character or letter surrounded by single quotes. And string, 2 bytes per character, stores a sequence of characters surrounded by double quotes. So now here comes the important bit. Let me just copy this value here. Let me copy it. Then I try to, no, let me copy this, and put it here. Let me just remove these commas here. So now you can see there's a red squiggly lines on this variable, and if you hover on it, you say cannot implicitly convert long to int. So what this is just trying to tell us that due to, if you can see it here, stores whole number from negative 2 billion plus to positive 2 billion. However, long is far larger than int. We cannot store a variable of a value greater than this 2 billion, right? In an integer variable. So all we just do is revert back to this and everything works fine. So likewise, these are variables. You can print them out in the console. So you can see my age is plus my age. Then you can just come down here, CW, open a quote, my name is, then my name. So what this concept just means is what we call string concatenation. So we're just trying to embed my age is into this same quote here. And the ways to do it is by using the plus operator. So that way, when you run your code, the output, what you get in your terminal is my age is, in this case, 30. So you see my age is 30. So let me just run the code here. Just before you run the code, make sure to comment out the line 1 to line 7. As highlight this whole line here, press Ctrl//, then Ctrl S, and can run the project now. After running it, this is what you should get in your terminal. My age is 30. My name is .NET Connection. Let's say you want to declare a decimal value, basically. For you to declare a decimal value, you either use the float data type or the double data type. I think, as you can see from the definitions here, it's 5 to 7 decimal digits, and this up to 15 decimal digits. Back to our IDE. So, say for example, you want to store your weight. So, rather than use the int data type, which stores whole numbers without decimal points. Let's say you want to load my weight equals to 145.9 F. Likewise, you can do that also. Double my second weight equals to 65.7. I think you can denote it with D2. I think, yeah. So now CW All you just need to do is to type course to the right line. Just type CW, then tab, then my weight in pounds is my weight. CW, then tab, my weight in kg is my second weight. Then save the file by pressing Ctrl S and run the code. Run the code. This is what you get. As you can see, my weight is in pounds is this, and also you can also append right after the variable that you declared here. So one of the ways to do that is put in the plus operator also and quote my weight LB, and over here concatenation. Basically that what this concept is called when you're trying to append strings and variables together. AG. Ctrl save and run the application again by either coming here or Ctrl F5. So when you run it, you can see my weight in pounds is 145.9 pounds with the weight symbol and this kg. If you have noticed, when the way I declare my variables, I declare it such that the first letter is in lowercase and the subsequent words in the variable, the first letter of the subsequent word starts with an uppercase. What do I mean by that is you can see that my age is two words brought together. However, the first letter is in lowercase, which is the M here, and the subsequent words in the variable, the first letter of the subsequent words is capitalized, as you can see in this my age here, and also you can see in this is eligible to drink. You can see that is a conversion what we call uh camel 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 is. So what camel just means is the first letter of the variable is in lower case, but the subsequent words, but in subsequent words in the variable, the first letter is uppercase. That's what it just means. Then also in the C# ecosystem, if you're trying to declare a constant, and let's say for example you're solving a math equation, you're trying to, you know that pi is constant. So what you can just, for you to declare that in C# is constant int pi. Everything has to be in uppercase equals to 3.14. We all know that. Sorry, instead of int, float instead. My bad. So for you to declare constant, you use the Pascal case. And what does Pascal case mean is Pascal case. Pascal case is the is when the first letter of every word is uppercased. So let's say you're trying to declare a constant, constant float my weight in pounds, 145 for F. As you can see, this convention, when you're trying to declare constants, and what does constant means is constants cannot be redeclared. Aside beyond the conventions of using, Kalman case or Pascal case, it's also advisable to use meaningful names for your variable. For example, This my age, even a layman knows that, okay, what this means is you're trying to declare my age. So this is, it's not like as if it's bad, but it's bad practice. Imagine I'm trying to declare a variable, which is my age, but instead of using int my age, I use something like int x is equals to 28. Nobody is going to know what this means. Like, it is, it's just bad practice. So one of the best practices when you write code is that make sure your variables, make sure to give your variables meaningful names, right? And that way, so that even you that are writing the code, you can be able to relate, or you can properly understand the code, basically. Yeah, beyond the conventions that I've mentioned, which are the Pascal case, camel case, or how to declare variables using useful names or names that make sense. Another thing to notice, you cannot use keywords as variable names. What do I mean by that is, rather than say you're trying to declare a variable or initialize a variable, my age, you cannot come here and say int is equals to 30. You're going to, you're always going to get an error. Or better still, or use bool. You cannot. Or use char. These are reserved keywords in the C# language, or basically the .NET runtime. You cannot use these reserved keywords, basically. And if you Google, so let's just Google keywords for you to better understand what I mean. Keywords in programming are reserved predefined words, typically with special fixed meaning for the compiler or interpreter, forming the core syntax of a language. They cannot be used as identifiers, variable function, include control flow. So for example, as you can see in these examples here, like I've mentioned. So moving on. So we're talking about comments, right? If you should have noticed this green text over here, these are all comments, and comments are just a way for us to provide more context or more information as to what is going on in our code base, right? So if you notice, when we run these codes, we don't get this information in the terminal because the compiler or the runtime already knows that any line of code that precedes double slash, it is going to ignore it. So there are two common ways which I have done in um, in writing comments. You can either write a multi-line comment or a single line comment. And the way for you to write a multi-line comment is by typing // twice and type any information you want to type. So for instance, I'm trying to like provide more context and say that this variable this variable below is my weight in pounds. So when you come back next time, you definitely know that what this variable does. So why this example is more like an overkill as to why we should use comments in when we start to write robust classes or methods or functions. You know, there are points whereby you write methods that if we check back later on, like maybe after some time, if you've written the code, we might tend to forget, okay, what this function or the method does. And what comment does is it has more context as to what this method does, so that way it saves us time instead of having to read the code line by line. Moving on, we already did single line comments, and there's also multi-line comments. So how do you write a multi-line comment? We just write / and asterisk, sorry, asterisk, and come below it and add a slash. So the way it works is, make sure you write this, a slash and an asterisk. Then to end it, you write an asterisk followed by a slash. So you can just write anything you write in this, in between this slash and asterisk. This is a multi-line comment. Everything between this asterisk and forward slash gets ignored by the compiler. So yeah, that's pretty much it as regards comments. Accepting user inputs from the terminal. We can also make this much more interactive, whereby we don't need to declare, or we don't need to like add code a value before you can print it out in a terminal. What do I mean by that? So take for example this code example that we just write. So console.write what is your name, then string name is equals to console.read line, then cw tab my name is. So there is so beyond having to write console printing um a message using this syntax, there's also another way which you can use to avoid using this string concatenation here, this plus sign. There's another way we can do is it's called string interpolation, and the way to do that is we have to precede. So after the parenthesis, the opening parenthesis, we can precede it by adding a dollar sign. And if we're trying to print out a variable in the terminal, all we just need to do is open a curly braces here, and the variable we're trying to print out, my name is. So now what we're trying to print out here is name. So I don't know if you can even notice the difference, right? So you see, this is just like a syntactic sugar to writing this, whereby you write your consider right line. However, if you are trying to append or concatenate a variable, you have to use this plus sign. Anyway, you're trying to use a string and a variable, yeah, you need to concatenate them together. So this just saves us time. So another way to write this line here, we can just duplicate this line. If we duplicate this line here, we can come down here and write it as such. And we just need to remove these codes and wrap this in curly braces. Is it? Then take this out. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. And end with quotes. Yeah. This is more like a syntactic sugar to write in this initial line with this one. Well, before I digress, moving on to this concept. So say you want a dynamic way to fetch username. So instead of hard coding it as such, as you can see here, instead of initializing a variable string my name is equals to .NET connect. So we can also do it such that as you will see when I run the code, what is your name? You get prompted. And so let me just run the code so you see for yourself. Okay, code is running. So as you can see, what is your name? And when I write Olawale and press enter, it gets printed as my name is Olawale. So that makes it much more dynamic as opposed to hard coding this by declaring or initializing the variable my name and printing it out. How does that so the way the code works is that when you write this line of code, line 49, right, the when the code runs, it's going to get this what is your name prompt, right? So the code moves to this next line, string name equals to console.read line. So what this console.read line does, if you can overrun it, you get information as to what every function or method, how it's being used. As you can see from here, if you overrun it, you can see read the next line of character from the standard input stream. So basically, what we type into the terminal, that's what is going to get printed out in this variable here. So that makes it much more dynamic. Another example is, so for example, when I come down here, if I write console dot write what is your age, you can also come down here, int age equals to console dot read line. However, as you can see that we get red squiggly line. That's because we are trying to save a string value into an integer variable, which is impossible. And for us to circumvent this situation, we can, as a concept where we can pass the value as int dot pass. Then we just need to put it inside these parentheses and we don't get that error. So right now we can just copy this line here, Control C, and paste it over here. My age is age. Then if you run the code, Control F, or you can just come here. You can see first of all, what is your age? 40. Yeah. So that I don't know, should I call it a concept or another way for declaring your variables is by using the var keyword. As you can see here, the one size fits all keyword for all variable types. What do I mean by that? If I take everything here, all the variables we've declared in the past and paste it here, let's just say variable 2. So another thing to note, thank God this happened, is you cannot declare two variables with the same name, or else you're going to get these red squiggly lines. A local variable or function named my weight is already defined in the scope, so we just have to change it up to 2, so that way there's not going to be any conflict. So now instead of using floats, there's a generic keyword you can just use and let the compiler or the runtime figure it out. So you can just come in here and type var, and also here var, and if you over on this variable name, you can see it already give us the type already, float. Same thing goes to with int and strings. If I copy this, just all this here, and paste it here, I just my age 2, let's just delete this is unnecessary. Then my name 2. Then if I change it to var and this to var and this to the var, if you over on the variable name, you can see the compiler already inferred the type, the data type, which is int in this case. And if you over on this place, string, and if you over here, character. Rules for naming variables in C#. Number 1 rule is a variable must start with a letter, that is A to Z, or A to Z, or an underscore, right? A variable can not start with a number or a special character. So what do I mean by that is, if we come down here below here, we try to declare a variable. Let's declare a variable using the var keyword. var operating system, sorry, equals to, let's just mark and end it. See, now we've already followed the rules. This number 1 rule: a variable must start with a letter, either a capital letter or a small letter, or an underscore. So if you append an underscore here, everything works. we don't get any red squiggly lines. However, if you come here and start with a number, you see that we get a red squiggly lines or a special character, which is can be dollar. You can see we get a red squiggly lines or plus or negative or ampersand. You can see that doesn't work. However, you can append numbers in between the variable. That still works. As you can see, if you append a number, it's going to work. I don't know if I append a special character, well, I don't think so. Okay, it's not going to work. So just know that you can only append numbers in between words, in a variable. Yeah. So our next topic we're talking about is types of operators in C sharp. As you can see from the list that I've provided in the screen, there are arithmetic, assignment operators, comparison, logical, increment and decrement, and ternary operators. So it just has to do with mathematical operations basically. So let's do var first number equals to 20, var second number equals to 5. So some arithmetic operations that we can do is if we say consider right line addition, so don't forget trying to print in the terminal using the string interpolation. All you have to do is append a dollar sign before the quotes, before the opening quotes, like I have done here, and type in wherever string you want to print out the result of first of the sum of the first number and second number is, you can just come in here and say first number plus second number. So to make it less verbose, right, we can just do var result equals to first number plus second number. So what the plus operator does here is it adds the number together as opposed to the string concatenation we're doing here. This is a mathematical, in this instance, it works as a mathematical expression to add two numbers together. So now if we run the code, we will get in our terminal the result of the sum of the first number and the second number. Instead of printing this out, we can just put result here. Then before I run the code, let me just comment out these lines of code here. So the way I did that is on Windows, you press control forward slash to automatically comment out the particular line of code, and you can also highlight a section which you want to comment out, and you can just press control forward slash. It's going to do that, but I'm just going to undo this. But moving on, let's just run the code so we can be able to see the output of this result here. Okay, what is the result of the sum of the first number and the second number is 25. We all know 20 plus 5 is 25. But before that, let me just comment out this one and this one to not mess up our. In fact, let me just comment most of it so that we won't have a lot of output in our terminal. Let me just comment this out. So let's just run this code again so that we have a fresh. The result of the sum of the first number and the second number is 25. Likewise, we can do for minus. We can just duplicate it here. Nope. So the way I duplicated that line, you can just, they're just shortcuts. You can press shortcuts, Control D to do what I just did. So instead of copying this and going down and press Control V, all you can just do is Control D on the particular line you want to duplicate. And like I said, you can't have a variable with the same name. So let me just give this one sub results. That's subtraction results. And just put minus and duplicate this. The result of the subtraction of the first number and second number is then sub results. If you run this code, as you can see in the printout, ditto for multiplication. Let me just, to save time, let me just do this, and multiplication, and you run it. Yeah, capiche. Same thing too. And for division, just put here division sign, save, division, then run. 20 divided by 5 is 4, as you can see. So one more thing to notice that also, let's say for example, right, if you change this second number to a number not fully divided to an odd number, basically. So let's say, let's use 3. We know that we can't get so let me just run the code. So for division, right, so pay attention to the result of this division. You see what is going to happen. So when you run the code, you get 6. Why is that? We're meant to get 6 decimal numbers, basically. However, so now the reason why we are getting 6 and not the decimal values, because the decimal aspect was truncated, because integers only stores whole numbers, basically. And the only way to go around that, for you to be able to get the actual values, by either changing one of the variables to look like a double. So one of the ways you can do that is either appending the letter B, and if you run it, you should get the full value. Or you can also do it like this. That way you will get the full output of the decimal place. Another way you can also do it is to make it much more explicit, right? You can cast it like we did initially. Yeah. Or did I comment it out? I don't know, but we're doing something similar. We can cast it and say, okay, we want it to print out as a double. All you're just trying to say is whatever results we are getting here, convert it to this data type. If you can remember correctly, if I go back to my browser and this data type here, you can see that int stores whole numbers, whereas double or float stores fractional numbers. Next up is the assignment operators. And actually, we've been doing this since the inception of this series, or since this video, right? What assignment operator basically means is, for you to, before you initialize a variable, you can as well declare it first. So what do I mean by that? You can say int declared value and end it there. However, for us to be able to use this value, we need to assign it a value. For us to be able to use this variable, we need to assign it a value. And for us to do that, we can just come here and say declared value equals to 20. So what this equals to operator is basically, this equals to sign is basically an assignment operator. So you're just assigning 20 to this variable called declared variable. So beyond this, we can also come below. So another thing we can do is we can as well increment this declared value by using this syntactic trigger, right? Declared value plus equals to 2. Likewise, we can do for, we can also say declared minus 2 So this is just a simple way of saying, rather than write it like this, we can as well write it like this: declared value plus 2. However, you have to remove this line. This line right here is a syntactic sugar for this line right here. So that way this is much more verbose as opposed to this one. So instead of having to declare the or writing the variable in both places here, you can just, if you comment this out, you can just have it written like this. All it's just saying is, okay, I want to add 2 to this value here. Ditto for this one too. If we duplicate this line is the same thing as this line below here. So now if you run this code, cw and tab, then our codes, then type declared value, we should get, and if you print it out here, the answer, I mean mathematically, we know that we've initialized this variable to 20, and if we add 20 plus 2, that's 22, then if we minus it, it should take us back to 20. So if you run this code, we should see declared value 20, sorry, not this shouldn't be here. I forgot that we already added this. So yeah, so same thing too, we can also duplicate this line and multiply. So this is syntactic too. Let me just put this here, so that way you know. And if I duplicate this line, then the shortcut of me having to change the location is, all you just need to do is, if you're on a Windows, press Alt and the arrow keys, that's up and down. So I need to move this down, and for this line here, this is the same thing as this. If I can find asterisk on my keyboard, this is it. Then what the result of our declared value should be 40, because initially if you had 20 plus 2, 22 minus 220, so 20 times 2, that's 40. So if you run it, you should get 40. Yeah, as you can see here, declared. Moving on, we also have the comparison operators, and like the name suggests, comparison, that's to compare. And how do how do we do comparison operation in C sharp? Say for example, we have this value int a is equals to 10, int b is equals to 5. So what we just need to do is to compare these values, we can just cw tab into, make sure you put in your $sign in front of the quotes. We can say is 10 plus a greater than 5. So that's just a placement for those variables. So what we just have to do here is put this together and say a greater than a greater than b. So the variable names. If you run this, we should get the boolean true. Is 10 greater than 5? You get true printed out. Same thing for if we duplicate this line, Control B, and we come down here, put the less than sign, and also change the less than sign here. So is 10 less than 5? Obviously no. So what's going to get printed out is false, as you can see here. So other operator we can also do is so let's duplicate this line. We can say let's say let's change this variable to, oh no, let's just add another variable int c equals to 10 also. So we can just come in here, greater than or equals to. So what this sign just does is what did that sign just mean? Greater than and equals to just means it should check if it is greater than or equals to. So if it is greater than, it's going to print true. And if the numbers you're trying to compare, if it is equal, it is going to print true. So let's just compare A and C. Let's just compare A and C. We should get true also printed out. If you save this and run, as you can see, it's 10 greater than or equals to 10 true. And if you come down here and if you duplicate this line and switch it to less than, however, for this we know that 10 is not less than 10, but also it also check if it is equals to 10. So this line will also print out true. Obviously, if you save this file, yeah, true. So now, uh, then the final. So now another operator we can talk about is the not equal to operator. And how do we write that? If we duplicate this line and we add the exclamation mark, add this, and you save it, we know that all we need to do is changes to the b variable, changes to the b variable. We know that a is not equals to b. Obviously 10 and 5, they are not the same. So when we run this for this last line, we should get true, as you can see here. And lastly, the last operator we have is comparison. So like compare, is this number equals to this number? And how do we do that? So we don't use a single equal to in this instance, because that's a single equals to is an assignment operator, is to assign a value on the right side to a variable on the left side. That is what a single operator does. But for the strict equals to, that is to compare a value to another value, especially when it comes to numbers, to compare them, you use double equals to. Please note that for you to strictly compare is a value equals to a number, you use two equal sign. If you are using a single equal sign, that means you're just trying to assign the value. That is the assignment operator that we talked about earlier in this scenario. So what this sign just does is compares two values together. We know that a and b, they are not the same thing. So if you run this, you should get false. Yeah. However, if you come down here and change this to c and this to c, obviously the value here is 10. The variable, the value in this is 10. If you run it, you should get true for the last, because of the right line is 10 equals to 10, true. So yeah, that's it for the comparison operators. Moving on, another operator that we have is the logical operators, and that is basically used with boolean values. And the way we do that is, let's say we declare a variable called is adult, and we assign it a true value, and this other variable as tickets, this goes to false. So now we all know from basic I don't know, for people that did maybe computer in high school or whatnot, we know that for logical operators we use the ampersand symbol. So what do I mean by that is, for logical operators we can say is adults and has tickets. So the way this works is this ampersand, right? What should get printed out? This value and this value for ampersand has to be both true for us to get true in the output. So if you run this, we are going to get false because a value is false. So if you run this, you see that we get false at the end here. But we also have another logical operator, which is the OR operator. The pipe symbol, you should see it on your keyboard. I don't know why mine is not working, but for this operator, all you just need is a value they are trying to use has to be true. And in this instance, we are comparing is adult and as ticket. Since a value is true and we are using the or operator, you are going to get true down here. Then if you change, for instance, if you change this to true, both of our outputs now is going to be true when you compare is adult and is as ticket. This condition for and both has to be true for it to print out true. However, for this, just a value has to be true to print out true. So now if we run this, we should get true in both outputs, as you can see here. True and true. And last but not the least, we have the negation um negation symbol. And what that does, just what that means is it just takes the opposite of, so what we just put in the exclamation symbol and the boolean variable. So now, since we have true assigned to his adults, what this does is take the variable and give me the opposite. What this exclamation just means is give me the opposite of wherever is this variable. So now that we have true there, if we print out this, we should get false. So if you run it, we will get false at this, as you can see here. This is false. However, if we change this to false now, you see that we will get true in the output now. As you can see, we got true in the output. Increment and the decrement operators. And this is just a syntactic sugar to increment a value by increment or decrement a value by 1. What does that mean is that if you have this integer value um, score equals to 10, say for example you are going to see this particular pattern in a lot of code bases. Say for example you're just trying to increase the value by 1, all you can just do here is score plus plus and you've increased the value by 1. If you print this out here, if you print this out, the score is, I put the score, you should get 11 printed out. So if you run it, yeah, the score is 11, as you can see. Also, the same thing too for decrement. If you want to decrement by 1, all you just have to do is let me just comment this one. So just press Ctrl// and come down here and negative negative twice. Save and run. The score will be 9. As you can see, this is it here. So the next we'll be talking about is the ternary operator, which is like the most interesting operators amongst the rest. And ternary operator is in 3 parts: the condition, the true, if I can write correctly, the true part, and the false part. So for us to demonstrate the ternary operator, right, let us declare I think we have a variable age, or I think we commented it out, but let me just put here var age equals to 20. So if you come here and say var result is equals to age greater than, so we all know the legal age is 18, greater than or equals to, so this is just leveraging the comparison operators that we have. So the greater than or equals to 18. So now here is where the ternary operator works. So this part is the condition aspect. Then we separate it by putting a question mark. Then we have the true part. So what do we want to be printed out? We can have any value, but however for this I want a string to be printed out. So let's say var results equals to age greater than or equals to 18. What do I want to print out? So if age is greater than 18, I'll say you are an adult. Then the last part, which is going to be separated by a colon, then write you are a minor. Yes, simple as ABs. Let me just result age. I think we've declared a variable up there that is results. That's why we have the red squiggly lines. So what this line just does is, okay, like I said here, we have the condition, which is this part. Age is age greater than or equals to 18. We have this question mark here. So as you can see how there is this similarities in our actual um, writing, and when we are writing in English and writing code. Like one thing programming languages try to like adopt is how do we make um writing programs similar to writing in English. So as you can see, when you're trying to ask a question, you put the question mark. So you're saying is age greater than or equals to 18? And age takes the value 20. So we are saying is 20 greater than or equals to 18. We know that's true. So what is going to get printed out? If we put if we print out here um user age, then if we're not forgetting our string interpolation that we learned earlier, and adding this uh, curly braces and putting result age. So what is going to get printed out is user age colon you're an adult, or is, let me just to make it much more explanatory, is, oh, let me just put it this way. Let me just leave it at this. Then if you run it, we should get you an adult printed out. Why? Because um 20 is greater than 18. And if you run it, we should get you an adult, as you can see here. And um we don't need to like explicitly like write what this condition is just trying to say is all we just need is a boolean value, which can also be true or false. So we can also come here and just write true, and what is going to get printed out, you also get to get the you're an adult printed out too. So if you run it, you get you're an adult. Likewise, if you put false here, you're going to get you are a minor, because like I said, a ternary operator is in three parts: the condition, which has to um, be expressed, or which has to result in a boolean value, and the true part, which is this part, what is going to get printed out if this condition is true, and if this condition is false, this is what's going to get printed out. Yeah, so this is for um, you that use VS Code either on your Mac or your Windows. um the reason why I'm doing a separate video is because the development experience is quite different as opposed to using Visual Studio. So without further ado, this is how you can create a solution or a C# console app in your for Visual Studio Code. So if you're on a Mac, go to your terminal, and if you're on a Windows, go to your command prompt. Then in your preferred folder or anywhere in your machine, type in this command .net .net new sorry .net new console dash n and intro C sharp, and press enter. And after you've done that, you have to navigate to the folder where you created this, and we have mine here, which is this intro C sharp. So you just need to do is drag it to this window here, which is your Visual Studio. And after dragging it, you you can then, first things first, you need to download an extension that will be able to build or debug your C sharp codes. So either come here, when you click this settings bottom left, choose the extensions, then search for C sharp dev kit. Click on this, and since I've downloaded mine, yours should show install. You click on install, then start C sharp. Click on this, and likewise click install. Then after doing that, you can open your program.cs file. Then then to open your terminal, for you to be able to run codes, terminal here, new terminal. Then run, type in this command. Hopefully you can see this. Sorry. So .net run. get printed out. Then if you want to get the debug field that I've been doing, if you've been following along since the beginning of the video, the debug field that we get when we try to run on Visual Studio, you just come here. You should see this icon here. When you click this icon, run debug, select C sharp, and this C sharp launch startup project. Click this, and voila, that is basically so. Same thing. I've been doing 20, trying to initialize and trying to declare and initialize a variable in CW for my age. We have to reprint this with the dollar sign and age. Then you can run the code by either coming here, clicking this, and run here. Voila, my age is 20. Hello world.